Hey, Big John here, and you've picked a great time to listen to Dauphin Island Diaries. There's already a growing library of stories waiting for you. You can listen to all of our previous episodes, and you'll find extended interviews, including a nearly 2 hour conversation with Sherry Pope Moon, whose family story has a very unique connection to Dauphin Island. We're just getting started, and like I said, our catalog is growing. New episodes and interviews will continue to be added week by week, so when this episode ends, don't stop there. Scroll back through the archive and discover a few stories you may have missed. Now, let's get into the show. Okay, so we are doing Dauphin Island Diaries. We're going to be talking about the Little Red Schoolhouse. This is an interview with Mrs. Connie Roan. Today's date is February 6th, 2026. We are actually sitting. You're going to hear, as part of this, some ambient noise in the background. You're going to hear voices that aren't ours. We're actually sitting in the Welcome Center in the museum on Dauphin Island. And the interesting thing about that, for those of you who are not familiar with this, is that the Welcome Center is what used to be the Little Red Schoolhouse. And Ms. Roan is, I'm very pleased that she's willing to talk with us about this. She's sitting at there's actually an exhibit in the corner of the museum where it's set up to be a little school classroom. And that's important, and it's relevant because she taught in this school building, and so really glad that you're taking part in this, Miss Connie. I really appreciate you doing this.
Sure, I'm always happy to talk about the Little Red Schoolhouse. Some very happy days I spent teaching here.
So how? And I realize this is probably not an appropriate question to ask, but how many years did you teach?
Well, I taught 44 years, but only the last 11 were here. I had already retired from teaching, and I got bored with retirement early on, and I was volunteering here. I had done elementary science, and so I would come over an afternoon or two a week and teach elementary science activities with the children. And that in May of that year, the principal called and she said, well, we'd like you to teach again next year. And I said, oh, sure, I love doing it. And she said, no, we mean a full time and we'll pay you. And I said, gee, I've retired? I'm not sure. Let me think about this. And I did. I discussed it with my husband, and I decided to go ahead and go back to work. The big difference is when I taught in Rhode Island, it was a half-hour commute on good days, an hour and a half on snowy days. And this is 3 minutes from my home. And it was a great way to meet people in the community and get to know people through their children. So it was a good decision, and I enjoyed teaching here a lot.
So now to give some background for the listeners on this, and of course we'll be covering this in our podcast episode. This is actually going to be bonus material, what you and I are doing right now. Mm-hmm. But the school itself was built in 1930. Mm-hmm. And it closed in 2015. That is quite a long period of time. Of course, it started out over near where the goat trees were, over near Indian Shell Mounds, and then moved down to where the current, down toward West Beach, is where the current elementary school is, and that's where this building was moved to.
Right.
Were you still part of that school, teaching at the school when it closed, or did you stop?
The school never closed. They just replaced this building.
Well, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
So
no, I had retired several years before that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So if I remember correctly from when I was here last fall, there was an interesting story about them moving it here.
Yeah.
because where it is at, where the elementary school is now, is where this building used to be, and it's not where it is now. It's directly across from the city hall on Benville Boulevard now.
Right.
It's almost up at the crossroads where the causeway comes across from the mainland to the island. The building's a little bit wider than the bridge that you have to go across to get here, if I remember correctly.
Well, I wasn't there. They cut the building in 3 parts in order to move it. And it was the second time it had been cut, because when they moved it from the shell mounds, they cut it in the same 3 pieces. So they had to cut the building in 3 parts to move it down here.
Okay.
And they let all the children walk down the road and follow their school right to where it is now, so they could see it. Because these kids had all been in this school.
Sure.
And then they built the new one, and now they're in their classrooms in the new building. But they remembered when they were here, so they all walked down the street following the building as it came down.
And the other interesting thing is, for those who don't know, who have not been to the island, is that the new elementary school was built to resemble this building. It actually, I mean, it's much larger, of course,
Right,
and it's,
yeah.
you know,
And
but the architectural style was meant to mimic the old style. There's that feeling of the heritage continuing through.
Yeah.
But the thing I was remembering, and it may have been someone different, I was thinking it was you that had told me that they had it on the moving blocks, and when they got to the bridge, it was too wide, and it actually had a piece that tilted it just enough to where it could make it through the sides of the bridge.
Yeah.
And then as soon as they got it over, they took it back to level. But I mean,
Right.
it was quite a balancing act.
Yeah, yeah. And see, I lived farther up here, so I was just about across the street when they moved it. So I did not see that part.
Okay.
And of course, I was chatting with all the children who had come to see.
Sure. So tell me what it was like in teaching in this building, because it was much smaller than what we're dealing with today. You know, certainly was not built to the standards that we see schools built today in terms of classrooms and such.
Right. Well, I mean, initially, the school had 1 through 12, and the big kids were on one side and the little kids on the other. By the time I got here, they only had 2 classrooms in here. It was the kindergarten and first grade. They had the school library, the principal's office, and then all of the rest of the classes were in portables around the horseshoe driveway. So I did not actually teach in this building. My kids came in here for library, to use the restrooms, because we didn't have those, and then they had an all-purpose room in the back that was where they had their lunch.
Okay.
They did not cook here at that time. They brought the lunches in from Bayou La Battery, and the kids, a lot of them brought lunch, so they ate lunch in the room in the back.
Okay. And so that explains something I was wondering about, is that, you know, just how much the school population had grown, because obviously it's much larger now than what it would have been when this was built.
Right.
And
right.
that was true even when you were teaching here.
Even when I was teaching, I think we had probably 70 or 80 kids.
Okay.
And when I retired, we had 120 kids.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So it had nearly doubled in that time.
Right. And they had built an addition out to the side that, all our classrooms opened onto a deck, which was something different that they hadn't done in Mobile County before.
If you enjoy the stories we tell each week and would like to show your support, I'd like to invite you to check out the Summers Media Enterprises merchandise store. You'll find shirts, hats, mugs, stickers, and other items featuring both the Tennessee History Nerd and Dauphin Island Diaries. This month's featured item is one of my personal favorites, our I break for historical markers, bumper stickers. Whether you're the kind of person who can't drive past a historical marker without pulling over, or you simply appreciate a good piece of history, it's a fun way to let everyone know you're always on the lookout for the next great story. To browse the entire collection, just visit the link in the show notes or visit the Summers Media Enterprises website. Every purchase helps to support the work that goes into researching, producing, and sharing these stories each week. Thanks for listening. Thanks for supporting our podcasts. And now let's get back into the story.
And so when they were ready to build that addition and get rid of all those portables, the other teachers and I went over to Pensacola because they had a school on the beach over there, and we looked at theirs, and we got together and designed how we wanted our new addition. So it was built with the deck connecting it to this building, and then all the classrooms and the nice new library all opened onto the deck. So we had an indoor-outdoor kind of school. The kids could go sit on the deck and read, or we could do science experiments on the deck. We did all kinds of things on the deck, so it just opened up our classrooms to the outside.
That is interesting. I mean, and of course, with some of the issues today with school safety and how you have to have everything so incredibly enclosed, most of the buildings I see in Tennessee where I live, a lot of them don't even have windows.
And it was different. I mean,
and so that's very different.
That was a while back. I don't know that the kids are allowed to do things on the deck anymore. Possibly some, but the way things are now, you have to be careful.
Sure.
But back then, I mean, even for field trips, you would call 4 or 5 parents and put the kids in their cars, and that's how we did field trips.
I remember those. We did the same thing. I mean, I can remember several field trips like that.
It was all so relaxed, and we would caravan to wherever we would go, and the mother who was driving that car would keep up with her 4 or 5 children, and each parent would take a few kids, and we would be together on the field trip, but the driving back and forth would be in cars, and that stopped after a while. You had to have school buses, which raised the cost of the field trips a lot, and permission slips. Well, we always had permission slips, but it was very different when I first came here.
So again, I hesitate to ask this, but give me an idea of what time period we're talking about here.
I came here, I believe, in 98.
Okay.
And probably started teaching full-time in 99.
Okay.
And then up until probably 2010.
So not too terribly long before they completely phased this out then. That was in 2015. So not
right. Yeah. So I had retired probably about 5 years before.
So tell me what comes to mind to me, what you just said in terms of those years, that time period. I've been working in IT for many years. I started working in IT in the early to mid 90s. So, of course, 98, 99, the Y2K bug. How did that factor into your teaching? How much was that a thing in those days for kids that age? Maybe not at all.
Not much, because we didn't have computers in our classrooms at that time.
Okay.
They had a few computers in the library, and in fact, that's how I got to know the principal and the teachers. I had dealt with computers a little bit when I taught in Rhode Island, and I thought, well, they had a senior computer classes after school. And so I came down to investigate and see if I could learn a little bit more about computers. in the process, met the teachers and the principal. And that's when we got to talking, and they invited me to come and work. So at that time, the children just would come in the library and kind of, should I say, play on computers.
And so how did that?
Y2K, it wasn't a big thing.
Right. Well, I just, the thing I remember was all the people were afraid that the electric systems were going to go down.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. And having worked in IT, there was a lot that we had to do
I'm sure.
to prepare for that.
Well, see, if it had happened later, when the teachers' lesson plans and all the attendance was on the computer, it would have been different. But at that time, Mobile County wasn't doing that much with computers. Sure. Other than a little experimenting and just kind of introducing kids, this is a computer, this is what it can do.
That's it's interesting at how in such a short time that technology has become so pervasive into the classroom. And it's necessary given the world that we live in today, obviously. But, because when we're talking about, I could not have conceived of using AI. I use AI all the time and stuff I do.
Well, when I retired, not only was I doing lesson plans and keeping grades on the computer and attendance, but then they introduced the big wall computers into the classroom. So my last semester or the last year, I had to learn this whole new technology of teaching with this great big wall computer and learning how to use it. And actually, after I retired, when I'd go back and substitute occasionally, I would let the kids do it because they were way better at it than I was. Kids seem to pick that up much easier. They're born with it now, almost. So,
when I was a kid, it was, your kids can program your VCR for you.
Yeah.
Kids today don't even know how to spell VCR, let alone know what to program one. But they can write code, when they're already, in grade school. If you enjoy the way we tell stories here on Dauphin Island Diaries, there's another show you might want to check out, The Tennessee History Nerd. Same approach, different setting. Stories from across the volunteer state, rooted in place and built from the sources up. You can find it wherever you're listening right now. And now, let's get back to our story. So let's talk about the longevity of this building. It was started. It replaced. Correct me if I'm wrong, but there was a previous school building that had burned.
Yes. And then they built this one, and it wasn't red back then either. In fact, I met a gentleman whose wife had been the principal here. And I don't remember what year it was, but she is the one who decided to have it painted red because she said, I always wanted to teach in a Little Red Schoolhouse. And so she had the building painted red. Hence, we now have the name, and it's been called the Little Red Schoolhouse for a lot of years. But it has gone from a 2-room school to having separate classes for everything from K through 6 and now K through 5, and to having the principal's office and the library incorporated over here. And then they built that extra, what they call an all-purpose room on the back of the building. That one didn't survive the move. Hurricane Katrina put a lot of water under it, and the water stood and it rotted and had termites. So when they moved the rest of the school, they did not move the all-purpose room. But it wasn't the original to the school anyway.
And so that's an interesting thing what you just said there. The durability of this building is remarkable because it was built in 1930. It's survived now two moves.
Yeah.
It survived World War II. It survived the growth of the island. I mean, when it was built was 25 years before the first bridge was built.
Right. Right.
And so it predated the development of the island. It predated the Air Force Base being on the island.
Right. Yeah.
And it also survived things like Hurricane Frederick in '79, which really devastated this island, and Katrina.
It did. Well, and in Hurricane Frederick in '79 took the bridge out. So the teachers had to come over in a boat and be ferried back and forth, which was difficult to say the least. And then, the teacher aide at the school, who was also our traffic officer, Miss Joyce, had been the teacher aide when the school was in the earliest days. And she tells the story. She would come in and talk to the kids and tell them about the olden days at the school. And when she was a child and attended school, then it got to the point that for high school, they would go over to Bayou La Battery, and they would take her over in the boat on Monday morning. Her dad would take her over, and she boarded with a family over there during the week, and on Friday afternoon, her dad would pick her up and bring her back to the island for the weekend. So there was a period of time there when the school did only go up to maybe 8th grade, and then the high school kids would have to leave the island, as they do now. But back then, it was by boat. And
it was much more.
And she would really hate it if it was stormy and her dad couldn't come over on Friday and pick her up because she wouldn't get to come home that weekend.
Right.
So.
And then I would think that if there was an expectation of storms for Sunday night or Monday morning when she would have been going back, you don't get to come home this weekend.
Well, and that was true, but at that time they didn't have the weather prediction that we have now, so it would have been, a little
more spotty.
Yeah, I would say. But, the school has survived and is still in pretty good shape.
It really is. I mean, obviously it's had work done. I mean, the floor that I'm seeing underneath me here now, this looks like it's
It was new
LVP.
When we moved it.
Right, this is not the original wood, obviously.
No, but we did find out most recently, we maintained the little girls' room and the little boys' restrooms from the old school. And now we're finding some rot under the men's room. I just put a sign on it that said, "Do not enter." They're going to have to do some work with that.
Okay.
But I mean, the fact that it's lasted this long, and
the interesting thing too, I mean, this is one of those things where it's found new life in new purpose, because it's now the welcome center here on the island. There's a library in here.
Yeah.
And there are some pretty pretty neat activities that happen here.
We do, and it's almost like a meeting place. People who live here, they come in for the library and they'll stop and sit and have a cup of coffee and chat for a while. People will just stop in to say hello, what's going on the island today. We have a bulletin board. We try to keep up with all the news of the island, and so people can come in here and check out and see what's going on.
If you're a business with a strong connection to history, education, travel, or place-based storytelling, and you're looking to reach an audience that values those things, we should talk. You can reach me at john.summers@summersmediaenterprises.com. Now, let's get back to our story.
And of course, we have visitors from all over the world, mostly the United States. A lot of snowbirds come down to get away from the cold and snow in the winter. And so we have a vibrant snowbird community, and they come in, they help out in the churches, they help out here at the Welcome Center, and they come on Fridays to play music. So.
And that was what I was going to say. You've got, here in just a couple of hours, you've got something that's going to be...
Yes, every Friday afternoon from 1 to 3, we have a jam session. And whoever wants to come and play can come and play and sing. And we also have a large audience. People come in and sit. They may not stay the whole time. They may sit for a few minutes and listen. And it's another great community activity.
And then we touched on in the beginning that this is the museum. This is actually a great museum. This has been a resource for me as I've been researching the podcast for a number of different topics. I mean, you've got stuff in here on Sand Island Lighthouse, a lot of stuff on the lighthouses.
Right, yeah.
Which is, it's probably the best resource I've seen, central resource for that. But you've got, I mean, sitting here right behind us, we've got all the stuff on the Battle of Mobile Bay. I'm looking right here in front of me at Admiral Buchanan, who was the Confederate admiral that was on the Tennessee. I want to bring that out since
Well,
since I was from Tennessee, and that was the flagship of the Confederate fleet.
Right, yeah.
And then, of course, over here to the left is Admiral Farragut, who was the admiral of the Union fleet, who was born in Tennessee.
Right. So you've got a lot of connections.
Do have a lot of connections, and that was the interesting thing when I first started doing, the plans for the podcast. It was really in the beginning for me, it was just going to be about Tennessee history. We came down here to visit on vacation. We fell in love with the place. This is where my wife and I want to retire one day. This felt like home away from home. We love it down here.
It's a wonderful community. It's a very caring community.
Yes. I mean,
something bad happens to someone, they have more food than they can use. People bring food. They come in and help out. It's just, people are wonderful on the island.
Well, the Tennessee connection was what I was going to say.
Oh, yeah.
I couldn't believe how much of a Tennessee connection there was down here because, you have the things that we just mentioned. We also, the sea trials of the first ever combat submarine, which was designed by the Confederates. The sea trials of it took place in Mobile Bay, right off the coast over here. It was designed by a guy from Gallatin, Tennessee. H.L. Hunley's from Tennessee.
I did not know that.
So there's so much Tennessee connection here, and so I was like, I got to do some. There's too much going on down there that I can't ignore, and so then I got to looking at the history of the island itself, and it's just absolutely fascinating. So,
it really is, yeah.
So that's kind of how we got started to do this kind of project here, and so really appreciate your time today, and I appreciate your insight and you sharing your experiences with us, and what you were talking about, that small town. Another thing I think that's really neat. It hasn't always been this way. Obviously, before Hurricane Frederick, there was a Holiday Inn on the island.
That's what they tell me.
But it was destroyed in Hurricane Frederick, and I don't think it was ever rebuilt.
No.
But the way that the city leaders handle things now, there are very few, almost no chains. Everything is a local business. They really want to promote the local business and not turn it into a tourist trap kind of thing. It's people live here. This is their home, and even to the point of, I think last fall there was some talk about an ordinance being passed that restricted how much people could buy homes simply for the purpose of like Airbnb stuff.
Right. The short-term rentals we worry about because it's pricing the island out of the range of young families. And if there are no young families, there are no children for school. And so we'd lose the school. And it's always been an important part of the community.
Yes.
So we want to make it friendly for young families to come, as well as, I mean, it's a retirement community. There are a lot of old people living here.
Sure.
But we want to keep that family flavor here on the community.
And
in
those
the community.
those people who are the natives to here. I mean, when we come down, when that time happens that we're able to move down here, whenever that is, we're going to be transplants.
Right.
Which and you're a transplant.
I'm a people say, how long? I've lived here 25 years, but no, I'm not a native. I know some natives. They're really nice people. I have great friends who were natives. I love them, but I'll never be a native.
Right. Well, that's if you didn't start here, you can't be a native.
That's right.
So, but I mean, that's the thing is, you don't want to push the people who were here first out.
Well, and their children and grandchildren.
And their children and grandchildren.
Those are, yeah.
Who will also be natives here as well at that
Right.
point. So it's really I love the direction that they're going with that. And that was, I mean, the only two chains I can think of, well, there's actually three now that I can think of on the island.
The gas stations.
The two gas stations, with the Circle K and the Chevron, and then the Renaissance Bank. And it didn't start as a chain.
No, they bought out.
It was bought out, but I mean, there are Renaissance banks in Tennessee. So
oh, really?
Yes, ma'am. It's
okay.
a chain.
Well, we did have a local bank because one of my high school friends had helped to start it over in Mississippi, and it was here for a while. But Renaissance bought them out. So.
And that's the way things tend to go in that
That's the way
industry.
banks go. Yeah.
So I'm gonna borrow a trick from Dan Rather.
Okay.
So we're both old enough to remember Dan Rather.
Oh, yes.
So one of the things that he liked to ask at the end of an interview, what have I not asked you that I should have asked you?
I can't think of a thing. I don't know. I will say that I had some of my happiest teaching years here.
Okay.
In my later years, older and wiser maybe.
Why?
But it was such a community school. I got to know the families. I taught children and then their younger brothers and sisters. And now that I've lived here on in the community longer, I'm seeing my students' children come here into the Welcome Center and use the library. So it's fun to see them grow up into successful citizens of our community.
And stay.
And stay, yes.
Because, small communities,
Well, so many of them aren't able to stay.
Right.
And that's the sad thing.
especially if they go off to college and then they end up with a job somewhere in another state or something, and then someone that is in here that I hope that we'll have an opportunity to talk to that has made that full circle and coming back, Shari, Miss Shari Moon.
Okay. Yes.
She talked about that family connection here
Right,
and coming back here, even though she grew up elsewhere. But she's in pictures of the bridge out here on the wall.
Right.
So.
Yeah. She is. So yeah, we're glad she came back.
So, well, I want to say thank you so much.
Well,
so
thank
very
you for
much.
the opportunity. I've enjoyed doing it.
I have enjoyed talking with you, and I know that this is going to be something that people are going to enjoy listening to.
I hope so.
So thank you so very much, and God bless you for what you're doing here and the work that everybody's doing and keeping the memories alive. Because without people like us ensuring that they are told again, they die. They die.
That's true.
So thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, Big John here again, and I wanted to tell you that one of the things I love about podcasting is that it allows you to take me wherever life takes you. Whether you're driving to work, walking the beach, mowing the yard, sitting in an airport, or heading out on a road trip, Dauphin Island Diaries can go right along with you there. So, if you enjoyed this episode, make sure you're following the podcast on your favorite platform. You'll find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, YouTube, and just about everywhere podcasts are available. And while you're there, I'd sure appreciate it if you consider leaving a rating or a review. It helps more people discover the stories of Dauphin Island and the Alabama Gulf Coast. And so, as always, thanks so much for listening.